Let's head to the US now because senators there have taken a major step towards ending the longest government shutdown in American history after backing a compromise deal put forward by Republicans. The breakthrough came after a number of Democratic senators agreed to support a stopgap measure to extend government funding until the end of January and to back a larger package to fully fund several key agencies. After clearing the Senate, the legislation will now need to pass the House of Representatives and then be signed by President Trump, a process that could take days. Before the final vote, veteran Senator Bernie Sanders made this impassioned speech.
If this vote succeeds, over 20 million Americans are going to see at least a doubling in their premiums in the Affordable Care Act. In my state of Vermont and throughout this country, for certain groups of people, it will be a tripling and a quadrupling of their premiums. There are people who will now be paying 50% of their limited incomes for health care.
Well, let's bring in our North America correspondent, Anthony Zerka, who's in Washington, D.C., covering every single twist and turn, Anthony. So what is the very latest? This is over the line, isn't it?
This is the biggest hurdle that it was facing. This was the logjam that kept the government from reopening. The Senate Democrats had not gone along with the Republican funding measure for 40 days. Now enough of them have joined Republicans to get it through its first parliamentary hurdles. Eventually, the Senate will hand this off, as you mentioned, to the House of Representatives. The Republican majority there is expected to approve it, and then it's on to Donald Trump's desk. So the shutdown isn't over yet, but now for the first time in 40 days, we can see how this is going to end.
But the major points, the sticking points, haven't been resolved, have they? Has the can just been kicked down the road?
It's been kicked down the road to the end of January, and we could be right back in this situation again when we reach that point, because the reason the Democrats were triggering this shutdown, the reason they said that they needed to bring the Republicans to the negotiating table was to get a resolution, as you heard from Bernie Sanders there, on these health care subsidies, and they didn't get it. They didn't get much of anything. If this was a compromise, I think a lot of Democrats won't see it as much of a compromise on the part of the Republicans. They've been guaranteed an up and down vote in the U.S. Senate on extending these health care subsidies, but there's no guarantee that that vote will go the way the Democrats want it to go. And there's no assurances that even if the Senate does approve it, that the House of Representatives would take up the measure and extend the subsidies there. You need both chambers of Congress to approve it. So in theory, the Democrats could just pick this fight again at the end of January. Although one thing this agreement does do is it funds the food stamps program, food aid for low income, through September. So if we reach another shutdown in February, that component, which Democrats were very concerned about, that component isn't going to be affected that time around.
Okay. What do you think got them to this point, to the point where they could say, yes, we are going to end this shutdown? Was it the economic sort of impact? I mean, obviously, we've been covering and reporting on the effects on airlines and air travel in particular. Was it just how difficult things were becoming? Talk us through why these Democrats decided to make the move.
Well, shutdown fights are always about tolerance of pain. Who can tolerate political pain, economic pain, social pain for the longest amount of time? And I think what did drive these 8 Democrats, or 7 Democrats and 1 independent, to side with the Republicans in the end was, as you mentioned, the pain the American public and Democratic constituencies were feeling. The air delays, the cancellations, all of that was taking a toll. It was becoming very much of a problem for Americans heading into the holidays, but also the food aid for low-income Americans and the lack of a paycheck for all of these thousands, tens of thousands of government workers. They'd been without pay now for more than a month, and that for a lot of these Democrats who answer to that constituency, who have government employees as a key portion of the Democratic coalition, addressing their pain, I think, became one of the biggest things that they felt they needed to do. The elections last week were over. Democrats did really well. They felt now was the time for them to return to something closer to political business as usual.
Okay. Anthony, thank you so much for bringing us right up to date on the very latest on this. Anthony Zerka there, who's in Washington, D.C. for us. Well, let's bring in the political analyst, Eric Ham, also in Washington. Hello to you, Eric. So what are your thoughts on this deal?
Democrats basically just snatched victory out of the jaws of defeat. This will likely be the Waterloo for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Democrats, after the elections on Tuesday, showed that they had the momentum on their side, that the American public overwhelmingly supported Democrats, not only in supporting the idea of actually continue to be a bulwark to ensure that 24 million Americans maintain healthcare coverage, but also that they believe that they were in the right on this. And the fact that tonight we get this stunning deal where Democrats in the Senate basically caved, this is going to be, I think, the move that once again shows that Democrats simply are willing to give up the fight, even as the public overwhelmingly show that they will reward them if, in fact, they do stand tall and stand firm on issues that the American people care about. And what the American people care about is the lowering of prices, not just on inflation and food, but also on healthcare. It's true that what we see today is that SNAP benefits will go to millions of Americans. Those government employees who have gone a month or more without a paycheck will get that paycheck. But what we see is that Republicans will not support or will not vote to ensure that those 24 million Americans will not lose health care. And this is all on many of those Democrats in the Senate. In fact, the most vulnerable
Eric, sorry
Senate...
to interrupt you because we're almost out of time. Can you see this basically happening again then at the end of January? We're looking at another possible shutdown because of a lack of agreement.
Absolutely, we're going to see it, because I think the consternation and the pushback on Chuck Schumer, and already there has been calls for a political opponent to run against him on his left flank. He knows that is happening. And again, many vulnerable Democrats, including Mark Warner and Joel Ossoff, also voted no against this. And don't be mistaken, Chuck Schumer voting no was just basically cover for many of those moderate Democrats who supported this. And now the question becomes, will Mike Johnson actually allow this vote to actually take place in the House?
Eric, thank you for your reaction. Good to get your take on this situation with the US and the politics there. We shall have a lot more on the shutdown, the impact on the economy in 10 minutes. Also,